We are going to get started with our mission statement, which Kara, I guess, likes for me to read each week, so I'll do that.
Can you read it?
No, it's okay. I got it.
Make
See,
a recording.
I should.
There you go.
I could use my text to speech or my speech to text and play it that way. Okay. CCAC works together to put children first. The committee focuses on open and honest communication, improving effectiveness and accountability, identifying systemic issues, and advocating for appropriate resources. In collaboration with Frederick County Public Schools, leadership of special education, parents, FCPS staff, and community members, the committee strives to facilitate positive changes in the delivery of special education services and the success and achievement of students with disabilities. We do not see anyone here for public comment this evening, so I guess we will move forward. Okay, so we gotta add in the other notes. So chairperson comments. So Kara and I had been working on a draft of the presentation, keeping in mind that this is a draft and we still have some time to make some changes. We did send it out. Some members have given us some feedback or noted some just kind of formatting issues that needed updated as well. Jake is on there because he has graciously agreed to present as well in order to hear student voice. So thank you for doing that, Jake. So he will be right over here on November 8th. Okay. Okay, so do we want to take a look at what some of the, so first it's the mission statement, obviously, which I just shared. And then some of this will look familiar. The last slide, it is just the overview of what we'll go over that evening for the board. So it was tweaked a little bit, but the general idea is similar. And then next we have our membership rules. We will be updating this because 2 members have resigned. So I don't know. I don't know. But 2 members have resigned, so we will need to go in and change the numbers in order to change the percentages as well. So just know that that's a work in progress. There's fewer voting members at this time. Intern, yes.
We need to change our partners to success to reflect 2 because the new person's coming on board quick and slow.
It's November that they start, right? November
So
1.
you should come in on
Okay.
to 2.
But another time it goes forward, you want to start it. Will be until the December, January.
I say we just leave it and we'll talk to it.
Okay, we can do that. Okay. So the subcommittee goals are there. We added in just a few, just the ad hoc piece, just a few tweaks.
Yeah, there was a few just, thank you to those who are some correcting at the start. We were throwing stuff in here, so there's some just tweaks to language and stuff, but nothing major changed.
Kara and I will be working on it on Wednesday, taking the feedback, going through, making corrections, edits. We've been able to carve out some time that morning or afternoon to work on it. Okay.
We'll get it done.
Okay. Here we have
There was a couple extra notes in here. We will add the TJ High School invite for the transition fair on December 7th. So we'll put that in there.
there was something else. I think. Sorry.
Inclusive goals, I think I noticed that on the comments.
Okay, that's the part.
Draw Me In Inclusive Schools Week.
Okay, that's where I was missing. It was tagged with something else, so I was getting confused. So yes, we'll add that in too. Are we doing something, like, are we specifically part of that? That's my question here. Because the calendar that we have here is specific for things that we are a part of. So are we doing, or are we gonna talk about that later? I don't know if we are.
I
So
mean, we have it on director's comments, but.
okay, we'll talk about it if we're gonna be participating. If we will be participating, we'll add it in. If not, we won't. But I do think that, we'll talk about it when it gets further on, but as long as we're gonna have someone representing at the transition fair, then we will make sure that's
Next will be the members' voices. So I had solicited different input, and thank you to those who sent me quotes. There were some that came in after I had worked on those slides. So if we are able to add them in, find some space, that will happen.
I think
But
it's a good representation though of what everyone joins for. I mean, we try to just kind of give this so that the board and others understand kind of why do people join this committee. It's often a little bit different than some of the other committees. So I think we have representation from students, parents, community members. Do we have a staff member in here? You might want to look back just to see if we have a staff comment, just.
I didn't
see one. I didn't see one either, but okay. And we may rearrange it based on aesthetics, but same stuff will go on. There is the,
They came in after I finished the slide.
yeah, the next page has a,
I'm sorry.
we do have a community, we don't have a staff. So anyone from staff wants to send us why you joined, we will represent you on the slide. But this is really just
Yes.
more of a letting people know what we do and why we have so much passion around it.
Then Jake will be speaking. We're excited about that.
Yeah, I have I'm working on just organizing my points in like a little document. It's still rough. There's still some tweaks I have to make, but I will try and link it in the slides if I can. If y'all want to look at it, make a few comments because this is my first time doing anything like this, and I'm hoping you guys can help me out a little bit.
Then it's the commendations. So we went back and looked at things that we had recommended last year and double checked with Troy on a few of them to see where things had landed. So these are 8 of the items we were able to highlight that are either have been accomplished or are in the process of being accomplished. Basically, things that we had recommended last November and there has been movement on.
Keep in mind too, some of the stuff we will elaborate on in our notes section. So we're going to be working on our notes in the next week too, just so we can make sure that we explain it if we think it needs to. So any comments you guys have, if it doesn't actually get put on the slide because it might get too wordy, we'll make sure that we make it as our talking point or something like
And then
I would just, I
Go
can put
ahead.
it on there. You have to say plus because of copyright.
Where is it?
For OG plus.
It has to say
Spelled out,
as
right?
OG plus. I added it in the word. See, I added it too.
it's changed. I just changed it,
Fixed it,
so
good.
if you refresh, it should be.
Yep.
Okay, there over here. Then that takes us into the recommendations. So we try to align them to the document that we received at our ad hoc meeting, which was 2 weeks ago, looking at what those goals were, finding what CCAC supports based on our discussions, and then also taking it a step further with some additional items to consider aligned to each of those goals. This is just kind of the framing of it, of all of the different pieces that have occurred in the last 2 years, but taking each of the main goals and then the actions from the information, the action plan, and then what we align to are always the first bullets that you'll see, and then in addition, recommending those things that fall within that category based on, again, discussion, based on comments from members over the last year since the last time that we presented.
And just so you, just as backup, the aspirational goals are the Board of Ed's aspirational goals that most committees, when they go to do whatever kind of presentation, have to make sure they kind of call out which ones are aligned to what. We obviously pulled it straight from what Troy and Katie put together last week too, because it was already lined up, so it helped us outline it, and then we added our other things in. So make sure you're reading through these, that we didn't miss anything specific.
ESOL is now multilingual education.
So we can fix that. Where's that one?
Here,
The last
oh,
one is, it's ME now.
Multilingual.
Just ME.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to spell it out because I'm
We
not
got
sure
it.
people are there yet with the
Yeah.
terminology. Yeah.
Which one? Thank you. We promised to proofread. Okay. He's in presentation mode, so I don't think I'm sure. But we're doing it here.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
So there are a number of pieces of feedback from members that have reviewed it. So on Wednesday when Kara and I meet, we'll go through those and obviously fix typos, make sure that it is grammatically. And then the next. So again, it's following the same format. I guess we could write out students with disabilities and Partners for Success. I use the acronyms.
Trying to find all the different places we're looking at, like the Jamboard, notes, or handwritten notes, making sure that we capture what you guys want. But if we missed anything, please make some comments too.
You have until 8 a.m. on Wednesday.
Yes.
Stop. It's a hard stop right there.
It's a DSCSS.
Looks
The
like Dr. Seuss.
The Department of Special Education.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Get rid of these acronyms.
Yeah.
Teacher over here keeps,
I was gonna say, especially with the DSESS and all that, if you have one time where you put it and then you put what the acronym is you're gonna use, and DSESS, because it does look like, what is it? Maybe it's, you could write out Department of Special Education Student Services in parentheses, just put special education, so that then you can use special education over and over again to refer back to it. Unless the board's been receiving a lot of DSESS, and it would be an acronym that's common for them. You come up with a language that would be, yeah, so you guys write it out.
We will spell that. I live in the world of acronyms.
I understand.
24/7.
I mean, SWD is known to the special ed world, but really in Frederick County, we always say students with IEPs because students with disabilities could mean 504 students as well. That's up to you. I'm just letting you know that the acronym, because I know that
We can change the acronyms. That's easy. Are you capturing those notes?
Yeah.
Okay. And then let's see, what was the feedback on this one?
this one is mostly
Grammatical
grammatical
things.
stuff, which we'll
Okay.
fix.
So then goal 4. Same. Mostly grammatical things is there as well.
And like we know we sent this out yesterday, not everyone had a chance, so please, hard stop at 8 a.m. or we can talk a little bit more today.
So plethora, you like that word? Thank you. That was not a word.
I just don't have these stuff.
Right, okay, and then
Can I
the,
ask a question? Sorry, don't.
of which one?
5.
Uh-huh.
So when we make recommendations, I think we may have talked about this when we were in breakout, like, if a board member were to say to you, well, what is your recommendation for a de-escalation strategy? Do we have an idea of what we're looking for? Or are we just asking, like, is it going to be generally what's popular in the state? Is there standard ones that each county uses?
So I realize that it probably means something different to me.
Let's, yeah.
So I see de-escalation strategies in 3 layers. First are the things that are best practices that are done. And perhaps there would need to be training on those, but there's approximately 10 of those. So like an antiseptic bounce is one that can be used. That's just, or proximity control, that's another one. Those are the very basic ones. Then the next level is where you are getting into more of the pieces that require training perhaps from outside. And the final layer is the things that you need to do to keep everyone everywhere safe. So the blocking techniques, the moving others out of the way techniques, those types of things. But most teachers need that de-escalation strategy teaching at that very beginning level in order to be proactive. So this way the other levels are more reactive.
I would think if you're asked that question, is it that we are
So
asking
when
them to invest?
So then the assumption would be on level one, the teachers already know those.
No, it would need to be like a review of those.
So we're looking for training in all three of those areas.
I would
Not
say-
everyone would need the highest level of training. That would only apply to certain programs, staffing, whereas the first set of things are best practices in all classrooms.
So we actually do have that tiered out this year.
Okay.
Every school is receiving a de-escalation training scheduled by one of our student services staff member, and then because we adopted MANTS, all of our CIAs and our BSSs and our therapists, the ones who are not allowed to restrain, they go to the very first day, and then all of our staff that are required to become trained and restrained go to the full 2 days, and that also signs off on their CPR.
Maybe it's not necessarily the invest provide, it's more of the communicate.
I would say continue. You continue with providing de-escalation professional learning for all staff in FCPS.
And
So therefore, we made it understood it's what you already use. So just continue to use what you're doing.
We were talking about the de-escalation.
Yeah, go ahead, I was gonna say, do we agree with that?
So when you're looking at the it's just a wording, because de-escalating something is already happening. So as we're trying to be less reactive and get to that proactive end, going for the least restrictive aspect of things, but where's that piece? And I think Nance is probably pretty good at looking at how to not even get to the point that you need to de-escalate. I don't know if we want that in, but if we're talking proactive, I think we're not even in the de-escalation.
That's part of our MTSS, the tier one, that really trying to build that tier one and making sure every school has that strong tier one. That's going to be the proactive piece that we want every school to have a strong tier one.
So then I heard Kara say, do we agree? So my
Are
question
we
is,
agreeing with that? That's what I'm asking.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
neither way, I'm just saying it sounds like there's something in place. We're asking for training. I just want to make sure we're all, as a committee in line, are we not happy with what is being provided? Do we want what's being provided enhanced? Are there certain things that we want as a committee that is not being provided?
I'm just thinking of things we've heard from staff and parents, that even though it exists, I'm not sure we feel like it's widespread. Is that what you guys are hearing?
I think also you have to realize this is our first.
Of course, it's none of the tax, just trying to, we'll make sure we say it right when we get up there.
So maybe like continue whatever the wording is appropriate, continuing whatever the appropriate wording is for whatever the training is that's going on right now, and maybe work with staff for feedback for how to improve that, since this is our first year of something like continuing what's happening, but solicit feedback to improve that system of training and learning, and maybe the system of response. We could get really down the whole rabbit hole there, but something like that.
Monitor response, monitor progress through.
Exactly.
Survey response, survey.
Yeah. Because when you have something that goes past a teacher and deal with it, there's documentation that happens. So you'll be able to look to see how frequently it's happening, where it's happening, to really identify who needs to be called. You guys can look at what processes are happening, so continuing and monitoring the response and enhancing training, those kind of words.
My first one. We're going to reduce this down to a continuing stance, and we might as well remove it. So we want the highest focus on the goals we want to achieve, and we believe this is already being somewhat applied, then I don't think we want to distract from the goals that we want the most.
Or if what we're hearing, if they're hearing it from teachers, then maybe it is not universally being
So I
in
think
their,
all
in
you
their
have to do
response.
is listen to the news and talk to teachers and even talk to parents about.
I don't want to disregard what people have brought forward to the committee as a concern by any stretch of the
So
imagination.
should it be more along the lines of, I don't know how we say this, because as we hear about things, we want to be able to say, oh, they do this. You can go here to learn about it. So maybe that's more of, it's the communication thereof, more than, it might not even fit under the slide anymore, it might belong somewhere else, but.
And I mean, evaluate, right? We want to evaluate what we're providing to make sure that it is meeting the needs of the staff and
Evaluate the
successfully
current
helping them to.
and support the
Like, for
needs.
example, this year we're doing a year-long behavior contact professional learning cohort. And we're going to evaluate that, because they're going through the principles of behavior, they're learning de-escalation, they're learning more in depth about ABA every month. And so we were going to evaluate that cohort to determine if that's something we want to make for our special ed teachers moving forward. Because I think you all want to differentiate. What do you do before behavior, which is all about antecedent-based manipulation, versus staff will typically use the word de-escalation. But I think they want to know about de-escalation, but they also really want to know, like, how do I manage behavior so that I don't have to get to that.
How do I see it?
Like you said, it's the crisis cycle, so that we can have good classroom management supports in that tier 1 like you mentioned.
So how about continue to monitor and evaluate proactive professional learning about behavior management?
Can you put that in the comments so we can play around?
I don't have my,
Oh, crap.
I have old fashioned. Can you hear me that?
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick.
And maybe just get rid of, to your point, get rid of the continue, and just say monitor and evaluate.
Yeah, it's in there, and what we're concerned about, what you're hearing is that teachers don't feel like they're getting it, or they're not getting enough, or it's not consistent, then it would be better to evaluate what's in place.
Take it in here and then we'll see if it makes sense, but I think I hear what you're saying.
Anything else with this slide? Uh-oh.
For that least restrictive environment, what does A and B mean?
That's what I was gonna.
That's, as you can tell, this is what I do for a living.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back through this.
Greater
So-
than 80%, 70%.
I was gonna answer it, Troy. So when a student is within a general education setting, 80% of their day or more, that is the least restrictive environment, A. When a student is within a general education environment, anywhere from 79% to 40%, that is B. And then when you go further, you have C.
I just wasn't sure what it was
I can
placed
put
on
what
for.
it is.
Do we call that here?
What, well, SPF.
Well, it's on the
CPS signs the whole
IEPs, yeah,
thing.
because you have to
that's
check it
federal-
off.
Yeah, that's the federal, coding and state, but I don't think that our public would know what that means.
We can
Sorry,
make
Dawn
it
and I
more-
were,
We can make it more public friendly.
I think the other thing that you, I mean, I'm just giving you all feedback, what you all want to consider is, do you all want these positions specific to students with IEPs? Or is it, another recommendation like what other folks have done, like bringing Blue Ribbon task forces that schools have these? Because when behavior support individuals are helping support schools, they're not necessarily differentiating, oh, this kid has an IEP, I can't work with them,
Yeah,
or
it
oh, this
doesn't
kid.
matter.
I think we have a large population of unidentified students, right, that this proactively.
Well, based on our tiered supports within our schools, many of our schools already have ESS positions. I guess just the clarity is going to help the board understand what you're asking for. Because we're not going to differentiate it based on LRE. We're going to differentiate it more of either grade bands or certain school demographics, or like we tier our schools out now. So is it all tier 2 and tier 2? Yeah, so the only level that doesn't get VSS position now is tier 1. Mostly elementary schools.
And the goal is eventually for that not to be the case, yes, to push, to continue that growth.
These were captured from some of the information when I asked about hot topics. So we changed to call it recurring issues. Some of these things, when you look back at past agendas, have been on there for a while. And then things that have been brought up here. So those it could obviously be a lot of slides, but sometimes less is more. So going with the ones that came up the most often.
And I think some of this is. Did we cover, one thing, this question was just kind of between me and you, we were trying to figure out, like, are any of these covered in 5 slides above? I mean, still a recurring issue, but did we and others
Staffing.
may not be fully flushed out or have been more controversial, so it's not necessarily that we are able to say it's a recommendation from everyone. But
I think the resource and training for beginners course is addressed.
I think it is too.
In that class, goal 5.
Is there data on how often special educators are being pulled for coverage?
They should not be pulled for coverage for classes. I mean, it should be, I mean, they should not be pulled. Yeah, special education instructional assistants should,
I think it's
in some
more-
cases.
I think one of the big things is
Yeah.
a lot of case managers are co-teachers.
Yes.
That's what I think is happening more, at least that's what I'm seeing, is that, and so people think special educators are covering classes, but they're co-teaching, so they only have one period of the day where they're working with their case management one-on-one, or are on their things, or co-teaching so much.
Or they're members of admin, which might be worse.
Yes.
Jake had brought up a good point in his comment here that I only took a snapshot of what you said, but you didn't even know that you could make an appointment or you didn't even realize what the role of the case manager was.
Yeah, so my case, just to touch on it here, obviously I knew I had a case manager, but 1, I didn't know who it was. And 2, I didn't know there was an opportunity to get to know that person better. And I could have just reached out to them with an email, but yeah, I didn't know who to email, so I was just kind of
So until
stuck.
someone contacted you to review your 504 for your annual review, you didn't know who it was.
Yeah, and I walked into that meeting still not knowing who it was.
And as to people being pulled, I can just speak personally for my daughter who's in a co-taught geometry class. The co-teacher is pulled a lot for different things, either a student in crisis or so then she isn't getting what is on there. And she's good about it. She comes home and she reports it to me. I've trained her well.
Right.
Even examples like the special education teachers who've been getting OG Plus training,
Yeah.
fantastic. But if they were the co-teachers and it was a pretty extensive training, right? It was like multiple weeks. It was a lot of weeks. So like a couple days a week for many, many weeks, a lot of students weren't, it wasn't that they weren't getting their special education services, but they were not getting the support that was expected in a co-taught classroom.
So now at the high school level, you're kind of testing, already testing,
Testing.
impact, whatever. The special education teachers are the proctors. Okay.
So we'll leave that one.
Yeah, thank you for these examples.
Is there a way to not have the teachers do that? Be responsible for that? Or do we not?
I think we can
How
solve
often?
it.
That's the question. How often?
I think what we intended on this recurring issue, sorry, real quick, we can change the name of it too, that's not all that. But our purpose of this was kind of like, last year we had like a additional recommendation slide. This time we kind of felt like we think we have all the formal recommendations in the first, those 5 slides. But these are other things that keep coming up again and again that we don't necessarily know if we, based on feedback, whether it's public or not, that we support it, we don't support it, but it keeps coming up and we want to make sure that everyone knows it keeps coming up.
So they're like hot topics that come
Yeah,
up.
it's a raise an awareness, like, but maybe you should leave it as hot topics.
We're not asking for a resource.
Well,
Not yet, but.
that's actually what my point is. When I look at this slide, I look at it, only one of them, obviously the one that I care most about, is an actual action item. None of the rest of them is something that the board can even do something. Like none of them is like for instance, just pick any one of the bullets other than the cameras, look at it and say, okay, what are you asking the board to do?
Right. So I
And there's
think.
nothing, so that's,
So I think what we were intending to be,
More of an awareness.
these are things that we want to bring to the attention because we want more information or more, we want you to look into it, or we want to ask for
Right, but I
another.
think that's something that we bring to Jennifer's attention or somebody, like not to the board's attention in this meeting. Like, at least that's my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it and I'm saying it's noise. Like if we're attacking the board, not attacking, if we're addressing the board and saying. If we're addressing the board and saying, this is what we want, to give them these bullets that don't have concrete action behind them that they can even act on. Like, the board members are not full-time jobs. They get a minimal salary to have a significant responsibility and show up, but this isn't a full-time job. So we need to give them direct action items. Here's what we want done. And any other noise outside of that, I think, is directed towards Troy and Jennifer and down the line. That's my personal opinion. Now, personally, I also would have the opinion that cameras need to move into recommendations. And I feel like we've expressed enough, especially over this last week or two, support for the side of this group. But keep pushing on it. But that's my 2 cents here.
I just want to add, I mean, I see it as a resource, I see it as an ask, if it's looked differently. I mean, if we're coming up and these are hot topics and they're constant across the schools, then the qualified special educators in classrooms being pulled means students are not receiving the education that they need. And they're not going to make it up. And so that impacts education. The other part, so I would see that is, if it's not an ask this year, it's maybe something you're planting the seed as a hot topic this year, and that is something that we're going to take some time to build on if it continues to be an issue. And then understanding of the IEP, once again, it goes back to, I'm assuming, I'm in Pittsburgh in the IEP, but it's going back to your educational plan. It's affecting student education. So if it's not being implemented correctly, if the teachers don't know it, then the parents don't know it, and the students don't know it. You put that all together. There's a resource needed somewhere to help improve these areas. So that's why I'm asking: is it a resource question? Is it a need? And if it doesn't meet to the top of everything else that's being requested this year, it just gives us another year to try to figure it out in the future. That's why I'm looking at it.
I feel that some of them though are actionable. For instance, general educators understanding and implementing the IEP. So during pre-service weeks of school years or those pre-service days, the county can mandate that there be some type of training where someone, probably a special educator in the building, can go through and explain that to teachers. So this is what you're going to get. This is what a snapshot looks like. This is what you need to do with this. You know, I'm not saying go through each and every page, but the things that they're going to need to do in their classroom. So providing that time to the staff in order to be able to better serve the students is definitely actionable. That's something that can be done.
I would just suggest that we rewrite it that way. We make it that action.
I think it's the wording.
Yeah.
Right, we make it.
All of
This
these.
is kind of our placeholder catch-all
Right.
slide, so let's fix it.
Yeah, all of these.
But I'm just putting myself in the board member's
Yeah.
shoes. It's, again, not a full-time job. I'm here and and we want to put it for them on a platter, like, this is what we want. Like, and not give that extra step of figuring out what that actually is. So literally write word for word an action item.
Provide training.
Right, provide training pre-year in the 11th month or our whatever.
And all of these can be action items.
Right.
Like the parent treated as equals. One thing that always bothered me was a draft was always written before you met. So it's not, and parents don't have the knowledge to really say, or don't really speak up often about, I think this is what should be included, rather than working with the parent to draft an IEP. That's something that always bothered me, is when we start an IEP meeting with a draft, it doesn't really change. It's always, we always kind of accept the draft, and I don't really get to put my feedback initially, like I speak up and say, I think we should add this during that meeting, but I don't feel like I'm included in the development of a draft until the already meets.
I'm trying to think about that one and how a starting point can be different. I guess I'm pulling a little bit on my time, which is now over a decade ago as a special ed teacher, and I would just have felt so unprepared if I came to the meeting without any kind of draft. But I wonder how parents can be brought into the conversation earlier, right? I guess strategizing before the meeting.
It
with
would take a lot of
parents.
planning, but I think it would be beneficial.
And it's required by law, so we really have no choice in the matter. Now, if we change the process about like, did you meet with the parent to review the draft? I've had that practice. But I want to kind of call to question some of these. So some of them are actually financial concerns, because if you're talking about qualified special educators and that's coverage, well, that's looking at our service delivery model, and the same thing goes with IEP and case management. So these are actionable items, and then like to Dawn's point, some of them are ongoing professional learning.
Question. In the new software, I don't know what the timeline is for the new software for the IEP. Would there be an opportunity? This is really just a vendor question, I guess, how that application will work for parents inputting and the team inputting stuff into this new system. I don't know. Do you know the system well enough that, to the point that was raised, there could be, a group contribution to a draft, or literally a workflow as, I just don't know what that software package might offer.
I mean, every IEP for IDA and here in Maryland, you have to have the parent concern section, which that's really where it highlights what you as a parent or what any parent wants to obviously make sure that is addressed in IEP. I haven't heard of a vendor that has a back and forth. Most of the parent communication systems are like a notification, and a progress report is an uploaded notification that you can access your child's IEP records. But it's something we can ask when we go through the IEP process.
Sorry, what we're sidebarring on right here is these were kind of like catch-alls, and and obviously they are hot topics, so they keep coming up. So what we're trying to figure out is like, what is our call to actions? I think that, and I'll speak to yours, and the reason that we don't have cameras in the classrooms on one of the direct slides that we've also gotten feedback. So we don't feel like there's been enough information provided that everybody feels that we should go as one voice to say, we absolutely are recommending this. So what we think we do need for like that one specific is that we need more information. We need a better plan. We need a clearer plan on how that would work. And I'm wondering if some of these other ones are also fitting in those areas. Like, are we asking for additional subgroups to come together I don't know, like, what is the call to action we have? Because these 5 things and probably some other things continue to come up. And Dawn and I didn't want it to be our opinion when it gets to like the question. So these are the ones that kind of fell in this outside realm. But I'm not sure what to say our call to action is here. Is it that we're going to go back and explore?
Well, I brought up the thought that certain programs are not catch-alls and they fail to properly support students' needs in education. The broken record pyramid is one of them.
Well, that one is covered up in goal 3. Goal 3 in this area, it was it's already in the plan that we are supporting, and maybe it's a matter of like autistic neuro.
We do have the cameras here.
Yeah,
we
do it as
should recommend.
Yeah. Maybe we don't need the last slide. That's what I mean.
We can,
It seems redundant.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. That was our question. Like, is it covered somewhere else? Is it redundant?
You could put it in there because a lot of it is parent input that you're hearing from. So like, you could just reword the title of it being, I don't know, just instead of reoccurring issues, just being
I think part of that says,
Something that says these are topics that are coming to us that we want to further look into and partner with our partners
ongoing topics.
to create, to improve them.
I
I
do
think
not mean to make waves on this.
No,
but
no,
I might
it's
be
good.
working too much.
Well, you're
on it.
taking it so we don't want to put on the spot when we get up there.
I think that if, when you speak to the Board of Ed, they're gonna have questions, so it's better to get, all these questions out now, and then instead of being turned red when they're asking questions that you don't answer.
I think to Dustin's point is, are we just saying, hey, these are things we're annoyed about, that we care about? Or are we saying, these are things, I don't know why I don't know if I'm gonna say this the right
I'm
way.
putting myself in the board shoes. I would take that slide
I
and put
just
it over
don't
there.
know what our point is when we're
Because you
saying
basically
this.
told me to forget about it. It's basically what my point is. If I'm one of them, and my job is to be here on Wednesdays, basically, and some more, put more time into it, and you give me a bunch of slides, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, here's some things we've been thinking about, I'd probably take that slide, and okay, let's focus on these if they want.
I want to hear from the board members sitting there.
But that's just my
One thing I was thinking about is that the hot topics is an opportunity. I would keep the slide, but it's an opportunity for people to speak in public comment on a variety of perspectives on these issues. I feel like it speaks more to individual experiences on, if your kid has come home and said, the special ed teacher was pulled from my math class again today, or for, I think, a majority, but it sounds like maybe not everyone who is supporting cameras in specialized programs, to again speak in public comment on that. So for me, it drove home that these are general enough topics that I would keep the slide, but I would also encourage people to be speaking to that in public comment, where I don't think, standard curriculum across classrooms to utilize as a guideline to be modified based on individual needs, is probably not going to drive your public comment on any given evening.
Well, and now I'm thinking back to it, some of my frustration in previous years has been that we'll go DOJ. And there were comments made from the board a couple times that said something like, well, this is the first we ever heard about it. And I'm like, really? Because I went back through 6 years of CCAC notes where we either talked about it in here or we had talked about it at the board, but for whatever reason, it didn't stick. So board members were like, this is the first we ever heard about it. I'm like, are you kidding? We've been talking about it forever. Like, we have been. So that's why I kind of like,
seclusion and restraint.
yeah. Now, maybe it wasn't a formal recommendation or was something else. So that's kind of like where I was hoping, like, if nothing else, let's remind everyone that we are having discussions about all of this kind of stuff, because we may not have a plan for it yet. We may not have it might not, I don't know. It's just like, part of it is hey, if nothing else, we're still talking about cameras. We're still talking about these things. That's kind of where my brain was going. I don't know.
That's what everybody feels, keep it, I'm just.
Yeah, I know they're good. I don't know.
Voicing our own opinion, so if everybody wants to keep it, just name it something else. You're speaking,
Ongoing
right?
recommendations,
Yeah.
or ongoing concerns.
Yeah, maybe just
Things that people will be speaking about in public comment.
Right. Things you should be hearing
Hot
about
topics
soon,
from
right.
our constituents,
Yeah.
We'll come up with a good name.
Yeah, that's
A quick glance of the.
what our
goals.
community is bringing to our attention, so we want to share with them.
So we can keep it, retitle it, but a quick glance at stakeholder engagement and operational excellence. I kind of think these items somehow fit into those areas. But that's a quick glance, I'm not going to fully read it, but I think it's, to me, in my mind, we're looking at operational excellence. And then if you're really, I think the IEP is operational excellence. But if you really want to get into it, if the stakeholders don't really get anything out of it, then who are we deeming a stakeholder?
So rather than have a tone, you're saying put it into each.
Students and the
families,
parents and
staff.
So stakeholder engagement, if you don't know what your plans are we doing? And we're just providing. So I'm kind of thinking, we can title it or Or maybe there's some way to fit it into operational. I don't know enough to this, but in my mind, as I see these pages, it could live there.
Well, given the IEP is a learning contract, yes, it should be considered operational.
I'd be remiss too if I don't point out, just because it was brought into question here, that both this board, CCAC 2 years ago voted to unanimously support the cameras bill. And the actual FCPS Board of Education voted to write a letter to the state delegates in support of the cameras bill. So it does have full support of this committee and the Board of Education at one point. Now the Board of Education backed down from that, but, or step back, but it does have full support. I haven't yet to hear someone in this room speak against it personally. So I don't want to let that slide through the gaps like someone's not supporting it here, that we don't have a majority. Unless,
Would there be support of then finding where the camera, where a camera bill would fit under one of the 5 aspirational goals?
There.
It's there, yeah.
It's there. It's under, it's at the bottom, in additional
On slide 17. Here it says the town hall meetings regarding cameras. Yeah, it's on slide 17, the in addition recommend.
Maybe we make that, instead of further discussion, we make that stronger wording, because
We have
Like
received,
Justin
we
said.
have received emails from members and other parents who have asked us to not just blanket recommend it.
Do you think that,
They're not against it, I'm gonna clear it like that.
I'm
do
just
you
saying
think
it's stronger.
that this is becoming, it sounds like a topic of discussions, do we support or not support? Then we decide here as a board, I don't have to say tonight, but we need to know, do we or don't we support? And it can be a private vote, it doesn't have to be a public vote. But I think we always go on, well, some parents this and teachers that, but it's not the board.
Right, I agree.
These people were chosen to represent.
We have enough of a, we have a forum tonight. I think
It
we
doesn't have to
should.
be, I'm just thinking if we may want
Well,
to come
we won't
together
put it
to
here.
probably decide.
I think if we want to
whether
put it
we
in here, we have to do it here. I would recommend a private vote based on the feedback we've received, but we certainly, I think we should do a vote.
Second.
And the thing to consider is that we need to make sure we are all voting from the same knowledge of what cameras in classroom means. Like we've recently talked about, are you for or against, or do you need more information? Well, we need to have a baseline of what it means, which we've talked about, what's the COMOR that's already been put together, that's being proposed, so that everyone's coming from the same lens of what a camera in a classroom is, in order for each board member to make their decision and make an educated vote. We don't want to survey ourselves tonight in a, I don't want to use the word ignorant, but ignorant means unknowing, so an ignorant way of not knowing what we're.
if you ask me, would I be happy with this camera being live streamed to the administrator's office? My answer would be no, and I'm the biggest advocate for the
Yeah,
camera.
exactly.
So it makes a big deal how you word that survey, because what we've done so far is useless.
So then,
So voting tonight, we would have to say, this is
Then my
what a camera in
question
a classroom
is-
means.
Are there classrooms in specials rooms, because that's where special.
It's a
parents
big-
go. Like,
yeah.
I
It's a big
need more
topic.
details.
I agree with Jen, though, we need to,
Yeah, that's why I'm saying,
Create
this is a
our
big
protocol.
discussion, there's no way I
so
think
are we
it's gonna happen.
leaving it as further discussion is needed?
I would think so.
Right, but
yeah.
that sounds,
passive.
that doesn't
Or
sound
just-
us.
That sounds
Or
passive,
different.
it doesn't sound.
I don't know, so I mean, yeah.
So further
okay.
discussion and more information derived from surveys and town hall meetings regarding cameras in specialized classrooms programs. Because I've heard the word information, needing more information, and for those that have the information, discussing it further.
I think my only other thing I'd bring up about it is it sounded like the wording of the questions, so a more detailed survey. And I don't know how to fix this problem, but if it is detailed, but it's not asking the right questions or giving the right amount of, I don't know that they're gonna get, anybody's gonna get the right information. So I don't know how, I'm just bringing up something I don't know how to fix, is what I'm saying. So I don't know how to word those questions. I don't know if there's already a survey that the state has used, because I believe it's come up in the state. Like, is there a format that's already in existence that has been accepted as a survey and not created internally?
And with all due respect, Dustin, you're really the expert on this. The rest of us, it's gonna sound horrible, but what have we done about it? Nobody's researched anything. Nobody has brought it up other than Dustin. We have talked about it and talked about it, but what have we done in
On the
order?
Board of Ed meetings. I'm on the Board of Ed.
I know, but
meetings.
that's going to a Board of Ed meeting, but like
But we're-
that's you went to a Board of Ed meeting,
Oh, I see.
for example. Dustin went to a Board of Ed meeting, we went with that group who was in favor. But us as CCAP,
Well, so I will go back to saying, I agree with your point, Laura, because I do, obviously, it's extremely important to me. I've been working on it at the state level for a few years now. My child was at Carroll Manor Elementary School when Chad Steiner was accused of the assaults and came back with bruises. I am fine with using his name. I am allowed to use his name as much as I want and suggest what he was accused of. I'm suggesting that if he didn't do it, then he would really have liked the camera to be in that room at that time. I don't mind using his name. So,
but Dustin, if you'll excuse me, I understand what you're saying, and I'm not putting that down that it is your passion. I'm putting it down like,
and
how
I'm,
can
you know,
we
I'm
do
not,
this?
that's what I'm getting at. Last year, we did vote in support of it. This is not an unprecedented situation.
But we have new members
Yeah, I
now.
was
Yeah.
gonna say, membership is fluid, as are board members.
Right.
And so with constant change of who is involved, that means there's constant change of opinions of the matters.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But I personally, I want to help. I wrote you a
I know.
detailed, get on my soapbox support
I know.
system of this, and you never.
I'm just trying to think what we want
However,
for the actual new recommendation, like what do we want to have happen? Like we go
We
back to
are,
what
I mean, clearly you guys are supporting more examination into this, so put that part in there, that you support more information
Can we support
towards.
further investigation of the roadblocks associated with cameras in specialized classrooms?
I would be more.
Because that's what it is. We're hitting all these roadblocks and we want to know what they are and how do we tear it down.
That's
So
what
we
I'd be
get a
more-
voice for these kids.
I like that wording.
So,
Because if we're really trying to make this wording more aggressive, we have to know with absolute specificity what we're asking. And I don't think we're there yet.
But we can say, well, we further support this and this, and the roadblock is why. Because we hit roadblocks ourselves and you guys are hitting roadblocks and the lawyers are hitting roadblocks and the students, everyone wants to give them a voice in the best possible way.
and there's roadblocks and misunderstandings of what.
So we want to work on that. That's something we want to work on. We want the board to know that. We want the board to be behind getting into this so that it's no longer just something that constantly comes up. It's
Well-
something that's actionable.
What's the communication been like with the unions? Because I can imagine that being the biggest roadblock in terms of onboarding
Oh,
teachers.
barrier. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Barriers.
Barriers.
just to be clear, and I said this last week, I don't even think the survey is the right next step. I think that those two questions that you're asking right now is the right next step. I think a survey is kind of lip service. I already.
Taking it by chunks is figuring out what those barriers are, but you have to first go in and examine them first.
Right, and well, and it's not, again, it's not unprecedented. There are other states and there are other places that do have the cameras, so there is the data out there that we can mine to figure out how do we get this in place. But more importantly, what's stopping us is the teachers. And so figuring out how we get the teachers in a room to get to a common consensus on what the parameters would be to get those cameras in the classroom.
There's the
And
lack
so
of
that
education
is
to our
the next
teachers
step.
has been a
That's
problem.
the critical path. The survey is just going to give us the data we already know exists.
I mean, I'm pretty sure when they did the staff survey for the specialized program staff, most of them responded, I want more information. They didn't say yes or no, they wanted more information, like,
Alright.
well,
What we're gonna capture
Okay.
is something along the lines of examine further investigation of the barriers, and if the board were to say, and CCAC, what are you gonna do about it? We would say, we would like to host some sort of formalized forum or something, I don't know.
So it sounds like there's a lack of education. Our educators need to be educated.
Oh,
on
we
what
need
we're
an ad
talking
hoc group for this.
Exactly, that would be like the
We need to work
recommendation,
on
we
it.
need an ad hoc subcommittee
We need
to
to work
do
on
something.
To do the work.
Yeah.
To do the leg up work and the research and have the informative communication to pass along what you want. Dustin, it's your ad hoc committee. I nominate you.
So for me,
Yeah.
two things. I think an ad hoc committee makes good sense to do more of the research and some of the work. I personally would like to see stronger language there. I think that nobody will just, I mean, there's nobody who would disagree on more detailed surveys, town hall meetings. I want to respect, one, I don't want to overstep in my role as board liaison here. Two, I want to respect process here, and so I don't know if you're ready to take a vote or make a decision right now. But on a personal level, I would rather the recommendation be that the board support state legislation for cameras in specialized classrooms. And to me, the state legislation solves a lot of the issues, that it's not a pilot in Frederick County, but a statewide legislation.
I'm just confused now, so is there state legislation that's still on the books?
I think in 2021 and 2022, it passed the House of Delegates
Right.
overwhelmingly, but then failed in the
keeps
state
failing.
Senate
So like,
both
is there
times.
anything out
So-
there now?
So Michelle Guyton wants to put it back out there again after the recent issues that have occurred again this year with new instances caught on camera. And I've offered to bring her to the table for that language that should be being used in these surveys, because again, the surveys are useless if there's no context. I would not support live streaming camera feeds, so we can't just put, oh, are you okay with cameras? And so we need the context, we need the language is already there. These hurdles have already been jumped multiple times before. We know what the responses are from the teachers. We know what the responses are from the parents. We know there's overwhelming support from parents. We know there's underwhelming support from the teachers without context, And so we changed the bill umpteen million times to make sure that it covered everything that the teachers were concerned about. So if we bring that language to the table and then we get the teachers in the room, we can find the common ground and there shouldn't be a problem there.
On September 28th in our chat, I actually posted states are Texas, Georgia, and West Virginia. Other states, including Louisiana, New Jersey, Massachusetts, New York, and Florida, have proposed similar legislation. I even posted an example from West Virginia. U.S. Department of Education with link, coverage back in Maryland in 2022, Maryland 2022 bill, and a peer-reviewed article that was done in 2017. Quick
So I
question,
wanna-
it's all
can I
there
just-
as examples.
Sorry. I don't want to commandeer this meeting again on cameras. So I'm going to recommend that personally, even as the biggest board, that we do have that meeting, that we have the vote later, not today. We do seek out our own information as far as how do we get teachers involved? How do we get, once we have that vote done, we do have more formalized recommendation to the board separately from this. This isn't the end all be all. We can always reach the board members.
Okay.
So I think we should move, like, this
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be moving forward. Yeah, I don't want that to happen.
No, this is helpful. No, this is
And-
good.
and-
So I think we've got, and again, please, all of you go in, look at it again and make any comments if you can, if you think the outstanding stuff that you feel we need to just tweak or fix, because I want to make sure that when we are out there, that we are truly representing what at least the majority of us feel before we run our mouths and say it's wrong. So, thank you guys. Okay. You pass us or no?
Well, it was the approval of the notes, but remember September never got approved either.
Right. So we actually need to do September and did we post?
No, we didn't.
Oh, yes, you did send them in.
Let's get to that part. Okay, we're gonna wrap this up and then we're gonna move to the next agenda item. Thank you all. 8 a.m. Wednesday morning or forever hold your peace. Because we have to turn it in to be posted.
Did everyone have an opportunity to review, I know it seems so long ago, the September notes? And then from our ad hoc meeting, there were notes from that as well. So I guess we'll start with September then. Any corrections, any additions, or a motion to?
Second. Second.
Jen, and then
All in favor?
okay, and then the October 16th notes.
Motion for approval.
Jake.
All in favor? Okay, so that takes us to subcommittee updates. Marlena, any updates besides the news that I shared with you that we have a few other people that have
Yeah, so
resigned?
we have 2 new vacancies. We have plenty of alternates to take over that. I'll be messaging all the membership committee members probably tomorrow because we have gone through.
Resigned, can you say who resigned and what position they're in?
Tony Penny, he resigned,
Parent.
and parent.
And Jenny Hudson.
Parent. So it's 2 parent.
2 parents.
So luckily, when we had the enrollment period, we had about 60 applicants. So for the parents, for community members, staff, we have a pipeline of people to choose from. We just need to update now the choices that we select because we've gone through most of our alternates already.
We've gone through all the alternates.
So I'll send a message, get a Google form out to see when we're able to meet, and then that way we can look through what we have left, so we can make sure that these vacancies get filled.
I'll just double check for you and I'll send you this. If you look at the CCAC member list, which I put in the chat too, that also had a ton of stuff, just check in the attendance there. After today's meeting, we'll have a couple other members that will have been passed or at their 3 consecutives. We need to do today's, but it might be worth looking at there, so there may be another 1 or 2. Keeping in mind, ad hoc should not count. Again, it's only the scheduled normal meetings, we actually don't hit until November. But just to keep an eye on, it wouldn't be before next meeting.
While we're on that subject, if you haven't signed in, the sign-in sheet is at the door. But please sign in. A couple of you didn't last time. Oh, I'm looking at Troy.
I have an update for you.
We're at communications. So May couldn't be here this evening, but she sent Kara something to share with the committee.
Okay. All right. So Meg wanted me to read that the communications committee will be meeting in the next couple of weeks virtually to work on this year's plan for outreach and continuing social media presence. She'll be sending out a form this week or next to ask people about their favorite resources, dentists, doctors, disability-friendly advocates, et cetera, to be added as resources for families as well as students and educators to be compiled on our website. So more to come from the communications committee.
And then next is the resource fair retreat events. We still have a vacancy there for a chair.
If someone who wants to help, I don't think I can take it on.
I will help you. I need you to boss around and own it, and I'm not allowed to hold a dual role in my current role.
I just don't have a lot of evening time, and I don't want to take on something by myself when I don't have
That's fine. I would love for you to take it on.
Okay.
And share with you everything else. And in saying that, since I'm compiling, and Rachel is going to be a great resource this year now that she's fully in, because all event-based things you really filter through her anyway.
And to have a partner very soon.
Oh, yes. And she'll have a partner.
But
But
I
just.
got a little team then,
Yeah,
right?
so I'll definitely help you.
Okay. Thank you both.
I just hate taking something on and then not being able to follow.
You two can switch. Yeah. And then just on that note too, so I think we have a chair, we'll put that on there.
You have a chair.
Yeah, we did have an outreach from D. Buchanan School of Dance, who we've been partnering with the last couple of years about Everybody's Nutcracker. It is scheduled for December 16th. I've already looped in Rachel and some of the members of the, if I had everyone straight on the membership committee, or sorry, events committee when I was, got the note. But it's gonna be December 16th is Everybody's Nutcracker. And we will be basically co-hosting, co-sponsoring it. And if someone can come and help us sign people in, and we'll send something else about it, but it's a really friendly, fun, it's in Middletown. A bit much shortened Nutcracker performance, and with more of the fun ones than some of the foreign dances. So it's been a good success in the past, and so we would like to partner with them again. And then the other thing that I think we just do need to say on this group before I stop talking, let you talk next time, is we need to pick a date for the resource fair.
Yeah.
So that we can secure both the building and make sure we start getting notifications out, and I'll get the whole plan over to you too. But typically so traditionally in the last few years, we've done it around St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Last year we did bump it into April, which was also quite pleasant. The only thing I think maybe we should pick 2 dates and then look at other schedules, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in the spring. Just to make sure that we're not, bumping into some, competing opportunities. I know like Parks and Rec does a couple of things, Infants and Toddlers does a couple of things in
And
those
I think
areas.
that's why April kind of worked though.
Is that why April would well?
I think that's why it's.
When is the spring break this school year?
April 6th.
April 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and
Okay, so the first week of April. So then you
In
wouldn't want
March.
it to be the Saturday before.
I'm saying that.
Yeah, so I would recommend like the 13th or the 20th.
I mean,
Of April.
it's the 21st last year, right?
Yeah,
it's later. Something like that, yeah.
Why don't we put both dates down, April 13th and April 20th, for us to just do some research to make sure it doesn't overlap with any other major events going on? Put that down.
Is that information that you email me
Or
for me to?
April 20th for the resource.
Okay, and so the events committee, we'll shorten the name, call it events committee. It'll be, I can't say it all. We'll be coming back. We'll do some research and find out if there's any competing events, and then check with Rock Creek availability, all that kind of stuff. And we will come back to you guys, let you know when that's gonna be. Okay. Fantastic. All right, that's all we have. Okay. Budget.
Nothing to note right now. I reached out with Joy and what's Jill?
Yes, she's gonna, she's working on getting a meeting set up with you, so she can kind of be your point of contact.
Yeah.
Whatever help you need, she'll be available. Katie and I.
Okay. So, once I get the copy of the budget, now that we have a list of the committee members, I think it's still just me and John. Is there a third person?
Yeah, actually, Jake and the other student members, that they'd be interested.
Drew was at the ad hoc meeting.
What? He wasn't the ad hoc, yeah. And Rachel, let me pull the sheet.
And need to get a copy of the budget, and then schedule a meeting to review, make sure it's still on track for what we're expecting these funds for, and then reach out to those different expected expenses to the other groups to make sure that they're still planning on using funds. So nothing really to report there. Rachel, when you were asking if you wanted to join in for the movie, was that you asking for funds?
It can be anything, honestly. I have taken care of purchasing the tickets. That was my duty. So anything like if you wanted to buy like trinkets, like a goodie bags, or just simply show up and somebody dress up in a Grinch costume, if anybody has it. Does somebody have a Grinch outfit? We can definitely, if we're purchasing a Grinch outfit.
Now would be the time, considering
It's a
Spirit
great one.
is over
It's-
there and Rebecca
Yeah,
Beyond
so-
was, I'm sure they have a Grinch in there.
They do, they have a really good Grinch costume.
Okay,
I
so
was
who's
there.
going?
What is the date again?
It's the 1st. I haven't set it out because I wanted to make sure that you guys were on board with it. Yeah,
December 1st?
it's December 1st at 2. It's a 2-hour delay.
That's right, it's a day of early dismissal or something like that.
Our school gets out at 1, elementary school gets out at 1:30.
That's the only time Warehouse was allowing us to do it, so that's the 1st at 2 o'clock. But if you're wanting to pitch in funds, they will not say no, and whatever that may be with goodie bags or.
We still have some fidgets and stuff, those are always great things to hand out to those events, so that they, maybe not the propelling ones, but something they can use.
Yeah, so that's.
So I think we have a bunch of fidgets left, right? We took all this stuff.
They're all
That's right.
Taking them.
I purchased, because Beyonce kind of threw me off. They didn't let me have a bigger room, so they took it down to 104 tickets instead of our 137. I'll let Beyonce have it, but
Is that what the Renaissance?
that's what they needed the room for. So yeah, 104 tickets.
And December 1st is the date of a 2-hour early dismissal.
Yeah.
Should this,
12:31 and 1:30.
Should this also be added to the 2023-24 calendar that is on our presentation?
yes, that's a good point, yes, we will.
Thank you. But that's in if you want it to be a part of your budget. Let me know. If not, that's fine too. Somebody just has to show up from the
Is there a file listed online that we can pull up to see what our current
Budgeted?
budget line items stuff are?
Fortunately, at the end of the last year, we got in a time crunch and, well, fortunately, Troy took the initiative to just take what we had and slap that together, and now I'm waiting, I'm getting a copy of that from, let me repeat it, Jess, right? Jess. I'm waiting on getting a copy of that from Jess. Since I've become treasurer, I've had some struggles getting the swing of things.
I understand.
And the Google Drive and access, and I'm exploring around, so once I get that copy, I will put it in a very easy to find place that other people can use.
And I have another question. Sorry. I have a question.
Yes.
I remember sometime in the springtime at one of the meetings, the discussion came up about the grant fund cycle and what it can be used for, because CCAC receives a grant fund. Troy, if I remember, was like the guru on that.
$500 every year.
So,
For 18 months.
and there were past ones that you were trying to use up that were gonna expire.
Everything's been expensive.
Okay. And so we're on the new grant year with how much?
500. That's what you get every year.
I was just trying to wrap my head around that. I used to live in government grants.
Right, but I think we've not used up our money, or we've used our money very poorly for the last 2 years, so we definitely want to make sure that we don't let money go back to the state again like we had last.
I love using grant money. I did it for a living.
Yes.
You tell me what you got. If there's the parameters of what the grant's allowed to do that anybody can share, Justin, I'll get creative for you. I am very good at that.
I'm not sure I quite understand it all either yet, so as I
Well,
understand
if
it.
Troy,
now,
if there's like grant language, like I used to live with 3 FEMA grants. So
Treasurer?
No, sorry, no. No. I'm really good at spending money in grants. I can.
Well, I mean, that's what the treasurer does.
I'm not keeping track of the money. I will tell you how we can spend it.
Huh?
I will help you spend it.
On
I asked to be on budgeted events, so specifically because of my grant experience. So I would love to look at that and figure out how to help you spend it. And we can totally get a Grinch costume.
Sarah's now on budget.
Well, I mean, I don't want to let this opportunity pass by though. We have bridges, but we have to get in touch with Kim and get Kim.
Yeah, we got a month, right? It's a month.
So what?
Oh, December 1st, right?
Yeah, yeah, you have a month, so but if you guys are planning on.
We will definitely be
doing
providing
that, I'm gonna
fidgets
go ahead
and
help.
people to show up.
Cool. And then somebody to wear a Grinch outfit.
Me and Jake are fighting over who gets to wear the jacket.
Somebody can be an elf.
Dude, I'll get your face.
Does that like have an elbow?
But yeah, I'll definitely add you guys to the flyer if you guys are gonna.
Yes, that is the flyer. We will fully support it.
We were talking about using somebody way at the beginning of this year to buy fidgets, and I had sent some information to you.
Send it to him.
No, just letting you know what I had found.
okay.
And you told me that there were cheaper places to get it.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, let's look at it.
Yes.
We should definitely, if we need more for other, yeah, I mean, if that's, we still need budget money for fidgets and things, we should.
We have bubbles.
Alright.
Some squeegees. Squishies.
I'll work Stacy into that, and we'll organize for things we might want for events. And anything else, okay.
So next is old business, and the first item is the revised drafted public comment form, which I think Laura had graciously offered, right? Yeah, had graciously offered to take a look at it and make some changes to it, and I believe you sent something out on Google Chat.
I did.
Yes.
It's up there. It's in the files.
Okay.
I also passed out hard copies last year because I like hard copies.
Do you just wanna, can you just
Yeah,
talk
just
to,
talk.
like, just know what you changed or added or anything?
No, because I redid the whole thing.
I didn't think it looked good to me.
I did, but I reworded it because that's what MCPS editing does to me.
So do you just wanna recommend that we adopt this? Is that what your recommendation is?
I had put it forward last year as just a proposal, and Dawn had spoke of it last year to say we would discuss it this year. So here it is. Hi.
Your favorite person.
Yes.
What it says, remember, you may also keep correspondence lines open with CCAC. Can we put like an email or what contact, how we do that? So do we have like a generic email we can put in there? Is there a voicemail box? Can we fill something? Am I looking at the right documents?
It's at the top, but no.
Well, I just need to complete that sentence. I, as a parent, if I read this, I'd be like, oh God, what is that?
Oh, you mean like a letterhead? Like,
We'll have the email at the top, but you're saying put it under
In
the
the
other.
text.
Contact blank to.
So the sentence says, thank you for providing public comment this evening. We'll submit your information to the proper team, blah, blah, blah. Remember, you may also keep correspondence lines open with CCAC. Can we put our email there
say
again?
via email.
Does that make sense?
Repeat it.
It makes
Just
sense.
repeat it.
Repeating is good.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I, as a
No,
parent,
don't
would
be-
be like,
Stop being
oh my
sorry.
God.
It's fine. It's good.
It's just.
I'm just looking at
Not you. I'm looking at the document. The print is very small.
Oh my God. Secretary. The secretary.
Yeah. For those who didn't get to see it.
So are we gonna make a motion? Do we try to approve it?
I asked if the committee would like to approve it.
I would make a motion to approve it with the updated mission statement and addition of the contact information.
That's Tara recommended, I agree. Second.
All in favor?
The next is regarding the grandparents that had come to talk about the flooring of the playground and the lack of safety for their grandchild as well as for other children in expressions programs. So I was just wondering if there had been any movement. I wanted to bring that back around.
Yeah, so we contacted Mr. Paul Lebo, and the intent as the equipment is being replaced, that is the intent, is to replace it with the rubberized surfaces in lieu of the engineered wood product. When, as each playground is becoming upgraded based upon the equipment conditions. So every school will be different on the playground.
Did he mention how often they are updated?
Yeah, it's based upon the playground conditions. So, Deer Crossing just got a new playground. So I don't have the specifics in regards to when each individual playground would hit that point. But he did say that that is the plan to change it to the rubberized surface.
Do we know how, because I know Ashton, Carol Manor, they didn't have a designated expressions playground. They just used the same playground as the other kids, and I'm pretty sure it's the same now that he's at North Frederick also. Like, do we know if, because they seem to imply that there was a designated one for the special.
Yeah.
And was that incorrect information, or is there actual playgrounds that are designated?
What they meant by designated is Middletown Primary, I think, has two. So it was like, what they meant is more of where the expression students are going. If you ever visit, like, I think that was more just a decision based on the location. It's probably safer if the student was to potentially elope.
But it wasn't, it's not like
It's not outfitted for expressions or students with
so
disabilities.
there's no way we could select a select group and put efforts towards that.
Anytime we're doing playground build outs, they do consult with special ed, but it's more of making sure there's meeting ADA requirements, or, I mean, obviously Rock Creek got, certain specifications, but the rest of our elementary playgrounds, it's more of making sure it meets ADA requirements. I think some have tried to put communication boards up, but that was maybe because of PTA funding and things like that.
Will there be a way to ask Mr. Lebo to flag the schools with expressions programs as a priority to have their ground surface rise to the top of the list over just waiting until the whole playground gets redone?
Always propose that to him, but at this time, they're just looking at the cycle of when they're up for.
I don't know if there's like a way to look at, oh,
Yeah,
this
we
summer we
also
could
have-
hit these two schools and get new ground servicing done.
I just think that we have to think about, we have pre-K now, we have learning for life, so it's something that really is.
It's needed everywhere.
What contractor do you usually go with? Because I was researching and I found that way back on the Rock Creek School on July 19th, 2018, it was considered to go with a play guard. That was under consideration. I don't know how that ended, but the whole readout was very interesting when you provided. But don't know if FCPS ultimately went with play guard or not.
He's the principal of that school.
Ideally did, yeah, so.
And we ended up ripping it all out because it wasn't done right the first time, but that's a side note. So I was curious. Yeah, I don't exactly remember who the vendor was, but again, we could work on that. I believe as each school is being built or each playground is being bid, they take bids from different companies to determine.
Can you remind me approximately how many schools have the expressions program?
Are you talking about this elementary, or you mean?
I guess it's
Just trying to figure out, so, yeah, just whether the ways to encourage this prioritization. I mean, if I remember correctly, I mean, the grandparents had indicated that their grandchild's probably has pica. And just, yeah. So I guess one thing I'm not overly familiar with, but I mean, do we think that there would be many more students with pica in the expressions program than in other special education programs?
You got to think about learning to select in our PK based on containment throughout. So PK inclusion is that insight. So we're talking about 16 elementary schools that self-contained programming, but even learning to select could happen. Talking about 20 elementary schools that we need to look at.
So even if a student isn't actually physically swallowing it, many of the students are seeking that sensory input, and so they will mouth various things.
I don't think that you should only be thinking about the specialized programs, because I had a student when I was teaching who was in the general ed world. He had Asperger's and he had pica. We had to pat him down before he came inside every day.
Plus, we had a kid die in Maryland not more than 2 years ago, I think, in Anne Arundel County from swallowing a rubber glove, I think. So, I mean, it's not like Maryland hasn't seen a problem like this before.
It's not even just special ed students. I teach gen ed pre-K, anything they find on the ground, they put them out.
So the plan right now is to, as each playground is up, it's always gonna be replaced with.
Certified engineer.
And you guys were able to reach back out, or somebody was able to reach back out to the family to let them know that.
Originally, I had spoken to them, and that was what we had communicated already. Anyway, that was how facilities, does make upgrades, and that it was put in as a request. So there are things that sometimes, if there's money available, they can, put in as an unbudgeted request.
I ran into them and will run into them on a regular basis.
I also recommend they go to their PTA in the town.
Yeah. The PTA raised funds to do resurfacing of their playgrounds. How would that, and is that something they could do if the family wished or if the school wished?
We just have to go through facilities to make sure that facilities approves, and then,
Yeah, like they could say, we have this money, we want to do this.
Yeah.
And facilities could work with them on an RFP to get the company to do it.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Pyramid program relocations, an update on that, how that's going.
So this school year, we have relocated our pyramid program to Liberty and Centerville. And Centerville currently still has a low enrollment, 6 students. They're doing well. They're working on hiring their second teacher. I believe that they have a contractor. They just hired their therapist. We've been having an itinerant therapist self-support. And then at Liberty, we have an LTS helping support the second classroom. That individual most likely will come on in December as a December graduate. So it's been going well. There's 7 students in that program right now. Soon to be 8.
Those are elementary school?
Yes. It's still at Lewistown Elementary. At our middle school and high school sites, we have.
How many students are at Lewistown, please?
Maybe 17 this year. Has 4 classrooms, so it could hold up to 40 active.
How's the staffing there?
How's the what?
Staffing.
Our coordinator it is a vacancy, but the individual that was promoted into supervisor position, she has stayed to support, and we just put in an offer for a BCBA, so fingers crossed. And get that BCBA. One of the things that we've done in lieu of not being able to get BCBAs is to provide additional staff through the RBT process. And so those are registered behavior technicians that have the credentials as They have to be supervised by BCBA's, but most of them have high school diplomas or maybe associate's degrees, and so they've been trained in behavior and data collection. And so there's one more individual that helps support with programming.
Okay, the next item we discussed earlier, we were going over the draft presentation. So if it is okay with everyone, we're gonna move down to new business.
I'm sorry, I did not, because I did wait for this part of the agenda to just kind of give an update. So
Oh,
I don't know if you
sure.
want me to.
Okay.
So I apologize for taking us back there. I guess I could have interjected that time, but I thought I would kind of follow the agenda, so. But yes, we did send out the survey. The Board of Education on August 30th had given us directive to survey the parents. And in addition, to do some research from other districts who have cameras in the classroom, and then to come back to the board in the spring. And so, of course, that is our plan. I know there were some concerns with regard to the survey and the way that the intro was, and I appreciate hearing the concerns. I will say that the responses, we did receive 69 responses. 57 of those, 83% were a yes, only 2 were a no, with 3%, and then 10 parents, which is 14%, said that they would consider. So I feel like for the most part, the parents did understand what we were asking. There were a few that said that they would like some additional information, which of course, if we were going to be putting cameras in the classroom, we would certainly offer opportunities for parents to come in, to meet with them, to talk with them, to reassure them, to answer their questions, and to follow through with anything that we would be doing. I'm currently setting up meetings. I actually have a meeting set up with a Missouri person in Missouri. They have some cameras, actually the public consulting group, if you remember on August 30th, they were doing their presentation. And so cameras was right before them. And so they came over to me afterward and they said, would you like me to hook you up with Missouri? Because they've actually put cameras in their classrooms. And so it was a great contact. So I have that meeting set up, and we're also going to be meeting with West Virginia, Texas, and Georgia to kind of hear about their experience. I know that those were legislative, and to Mr. Bass's point earlier, certainly the legislation dictates it, and certainly then we all have to comply. So their situation is a little bit different, but we can still learn from their experience. And as you all already talked about, it really is a negotiated working conditions with the associations. And so certainly we would have to really work with them closely on exactly, does all the staff for that room agree? And there is a teacher and 3 SEIAs for each of those classrooms. And then in addition, for any folks who are coming into it. Otherwise, the association have said that they would not agree. So we would have to have complete agreement by every staff member in that room and people who are pushing into that room in order for us to do that. And so we were looking forward to the spring, coming back to the board and giving them an update on this work, and then getting further direction from the board with regard to cameras in the classroom. So, and I apologize for the frustration that the survey created. But certainly that I don't like for people to feel that frustration, because my goal is to be very transparent. And so I just apologize for the fact that created frustration.
The states that you're attending, Missouri and others, are, I guess two questions. Are any of the states that you're going for not union states, like a right to work state?
Correct.
Is Missouri a right to work?
Missouri is not. I'm curious to hear exactly about the Missouri. I think, because I said to them, are they non-publics? And so I kind of got the impression that they might be non-publics. So it'll be interesting to hear kind of what that is. I don't know for sure.
And then maybe it's a Dustin question, but are any of the ones that you've talked to, have any of the cameras in the classrooms gone in without state legislation?
I know that Missouri is one, but that's certainly something I'm going to do more research on to find out.
And I was going to say, so the Georgia one also is not required. It basically was legislation that passed that said if you want to, here's how you need to do it. And so it was an opt-in, because I was actually in Atlanta at the time when it was approved. So we did get a lot of questions, but it did not force districts to do it. So I think there's a few that have gone on board. So those are the ones that we're interested in reaching out to.
Is Georgia a union state?
No.
Those numbers again?
Sorry.
69, this was as of Friday, midday, so there could be more since then. 69 responses, 57 said yes, 83%, 2 said no, 3%, and then 10 said consider, 14%.
And can I, since we did talk about it earlier, I do not want to take up a bunch of time. What I would like to say is I do think it should be, as I mentioned before, a topic for us to vote on formally especially that obviously shows a large portion, the overwhelming majority supporting parent side as expected. For us to vote on it, I wanted to give just a quick synopsis of what the Maryland state language has, which is mocked after a lot of the other states, and based so that people have that information when they come back for votes. We don't have that same, blocking point. So the gist of it is where the state bill had gotten to is that the camera can only be pulled in cases where accusations of suspected abuse has occurred. It's the only time the footage can be pulled. At that time, a resource officer is allowed to review the camera. And even in that scenario, if the officer observes another issue while watching that camera, that issue cannot even be brought up. So it literally has to be that issue has been brought, an accusation of abuse is the only way that video can even be watched. And then once it's watched, the only scenario that can be watched is that scenario that was accused of. So it's not live streamed. It's not able to be used for performance evaluations. It's not monitored. None of those scenarios that most teachers are concerned about. And as far as the only typical counter arguments in parents' eyes is the privacy of the child. And most of the time, once they know those parameters, that look, the likelihood of your child ever even being seen in the footage is near nil. Most of them are more accepting. So, and that's after several years of rewriting that bill over and over, doing the research on it. So,
Are you proposing that there's a vote to endorse the legislation or endorse a policy based on that?
So the legislation hit a significant roadblock because Pinsky just would not even bring it to the Senate floor. So it would pass the House every time, and then the person that was in charge of what votes got and what bills got to hit the floor in the Senate, Paul Pinsky, was backed by the Teachers Association. Therefore, he had an unspoken reason to not let it hit the floor for a vote. That's the behind the scenes discussion on that. So it kind of got to a point where it's like, we can't just keep putting up this effort and fight when we know it's not going to get a vote. Pinsky resigned, so he's no longer there anymore. So now there's a movement again to get it back on the floor for an issue this coming year. I know that there's some discussion like, oh, if we get it legislated, I just find that to be the longer term solution. I would rather get the whole group here to formally support it in Frederick County and keep sticking with the pilot. Because I do believe that if we get enough of these teachers in a room and really just hash it out and say, like, we're supporting you. One of my former wrestling coach, multiple of my former wrestling coaches are SEIAs in these rooms, and I've had these discussions with them multiple times. Like, the last thing I wanted to do is deter one of you who I look at as heroes, that you spend that time to support children like my son. I want this to protect you as well, because when my child came home with a massive bruise in the center of his back, I had no choice but to let my mind go to the worst case scenario. And I'd rather that video be there to absolve you as well. And I apologize. I let my emotions get a hold of me. The saying his name was not important, and I should have left it alone. It's just my son was there and involved, and I was not provided that information at the time. So it's a sensitive topic to me. And so that's what I really want us to support it here for the pilot, because I believe we can do it faster. I believe if we put our heads to it, we can get over the hurdles that are there. That's my opinion.
So just a follow-up, when you have those surveys with the states, I would suggest, I don't know if we define question set or if it's just an open conversation, but understanding whether the states are, Troy's point, how many of them are opt-in. The other would be how many of them are recording just video only or recording audio and video. I think there's a huge difference with the fears that anyone would have. Maybe in non-criminal cases, the fears would be alleviated if you had kind of non-audio version. I think the opt-in, I think we also have to be practical that one of the implications here in an IEP context is that people will have a disagreement with an IEP and they'll request a copy of the tape. Hey, I don't think you're providing the services. I'd like to see the tape approved. So I'd be very interested to see how these practical questions are being handled by this other states. And are they running it through the solicitor's office or the general counsel's office? Because, you know, we're going to get into litigation and privacy access, right? You know, people have rights to access to public records. So I'm really fascinated how the states are basically, you know, in the states that don't have legislation, I'm sure the states that do, it's defined under that law. But in the open states, how are they practically dealing with those issues would be really helpful. And I think if the goal is to do an opt-in, if the goal is to do a pilot, I think an opt-in approach would complement that, just to have a free-form voluntary opt-in, and you might even consider also the location. It could be hallways as opposed to classrooms. You know, you might just let.
Well, so that's part of our argument is it's already in the hallways, it's in the buses, it's in the main office, it's on the outside of the building, it's in the playgrounds. Like there's cameras everywhere. You walk into any store, any gas station, like.
And with the school access, I believe we had a sidebar conversation, Karen and I did one night when we were here, and we were advised that, you know, the cameras like on the school bus, for instance, they don't fall under FOIA. You couldn't do a FOIA for the cameras on the school bus because of the privacy laws. And the cameras in the school would fall under that same umbrella. So it would have to be for what the cameras are there for. It couldn't just be like I could say, hey, Dawn, I want to do a FOIA of all the cameras in the school at this time. You can't just do that as a public person. It has to be based on accusation. Just like I can't FOIA bus tape unless I think my kid had an incident on the bus and then the tape is reviewed, and I'm only shown the tape if I make the request.
So maybe not FOIA, but under litigation and subpoena authority, you might be able to civil subpoenas. You might be able to say, I'd like to subpoena the video because I'm suing the school because they're not implementing the IEP, which could open the school and the teachers to that whole dynamic, which might not be the intent. It might be the intent to just keep it at a certain threshold. So that's really, if they don't use the audio, then if they don't use the audio, then we're just getting into criminal, you know, clearly a video only is just showing physical criminal acts as opposed to maybe the teacher's union that's worried about like, what were your instructional guidance, you know, what were your verbal guidance, what was the dialogue?
So can I propose something here that anyone that would be interested in being on the ad hoc for this particular topic, if you will, I don't know, do we want to raise hands and see who that would be and then move forward with scheduling a date for that group of people to meet? Because we still have all of the new business, Board of Ed, director's comments, so we may either have to elect to skip something in tonight's agenda. Obviously, we have to vote on that, or go out of order and see how far we get, because we have 14 minutes left.
Can I just ask, as a new member, I'm sort of catching up on all of this. Are there past resources, notes of discussions, whatnot, that I can sort of add to my own personal research to get caught up? I would feel really comfortable just having all of that before I think about an ad hoc group or a vote or anything like that.
The minutes are all the drive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all accessible, but.
And this is recorded, the August one didn't record correctly, but the September one did. So you can also go onto the FCPS YouTube and always go back and look at prior CCAC meetings.
We will try to put that in the notes of the channel where to find all that. Yeah.
Do you have access to all of the folders, Wendy? Do you have access to the different folders?
I believe so.
I think so. Dustin and I are going to take a stab at arranging that too. But anyway. I still would recommend there be an ad hoc committee. I mean, you wouldn't have to sign up for it immediately. I would recommend let's just officially make one. And then maybe that team could help compile all these questions and stuff too.
I do think,
think
yeah.
it'd be really I think we ask the same questions a lot, and not just because we care. So, I mean, if we got it compiled, we'd be like, oh yeah, here it is, I can just read it again, to your point. That'd be great.
I don't know if I'm allowed, but can I make a motion for new business to be last? For the directors.
I second
Yeah, I second
All in favor of moving new business to the end?
So we're moving it, and then what are we gonna try to cover in 14 minutes?
that.
So you wanna move to the directors, you're gonna skip BOA, BOE?
Or do BOE and directors, and then potentially have new business until the next meeting.
If you're gonna move things, I say move my report. I was just going to update you on my budget requests, I'd say move my report.
Just go straight to the.
Okay, so then director's comments would be next, and then depending on time, start new business.
I just want to ask a clarification question, Mr. Bass, your financial stuff that you were going to say, does that go in line with our presentation coming up to the board? Does any of that overlap?
Briefly, my biggest budget recommendation is implementing the special education audit. I feel like the report that you're presenting is largely along those lines. I'm not sure it would change your presentation.
You just did your presentation.
All in favor of moving new business to the end?
Okay, so director's comments.
Ours should be pretty short. I did see that there was some new business, or there was some questions about our restraint data. I'm happy to provide more information, but this is our year-over-year data, and this is current up until a couple weeks ago. September 29th. And so you'll see that the past 3 years, we've had a significant drop in our restraint. Last year, we ended at 48. This year, we're at 9 restraints, and that is still current. Or there's 10 now. For reference, if you keep scrolling down, for those that have not had a chance to view our board presentation sessions, these are our last 3 presentations. We always provide monthly staffing updates. Ms. Beekman keeps providing audit updates. And then we also did report in October about one of our key performance indicators as it relates to special education and our district goals.
And the survey is still open if anybody wants to continue to give comment on that. Action plan.
Really quick, while you're talking about presentations, just because I think Katie's driving you where it is. For those of you who are new, can you show them where they can go on board docs to get presentations? Because I feel like we've never actually shown this anywhere. So you go to fcps.org/BOE or whatever, you end up in board docs, right?
This just happens to be.
Yeah.
And you go to the fcps.org website, and then the tab says Board of Education. And then you click on agenda.
Thank you. Can you just, thank you, Katie. I just want to take you to the beginning, because it's, every year I always forget to share this, and this is where you can always find it.
Aaron, I helped you, I did put that in our chat. Well,
Yeah, so you send up on board docs and then meetings, wherever they are. You can look at old meetings in the top right, yeah. And then pick which date it is. So a lot of what they're sharing in here, they've already presented at previous Board of Ed meetings, and they're recapping it. And any meeting or recommendation that we've ever done or anything, it's in here. It goes back like 10 years or something, so always find the agendas. Or watch them if you're live, yeah, Swagged videos. And what's nice about the Swagged videos too is you can also skip those just to the parts you care about. Not that you don't care about it all, but I don't like to listen to all of it. So I skip around and watch the pertinent areas. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to divert you, but I thought that'd be helpful. Thank you.
And then we talked about this earlier, but it's the Inclusive Schools Week, which is going to be December 4th through 8th. So the Draw Me In is the topic for this year for that week. And so there's different hashtags that we've populated, and then we have a work group currently working on this week's event.
should we add that to our calendar? That's in our presentation.
We were, and we were just talking about that is, are we personally gonna be part of it? I don't think so. So we were saying we were only gonna do the, calendar for items that like CCAC is hosting or sponsoring or. But I think that.
Is this something like individual schools, principals, and their teams will decide and have events or activities during that week?
So
About
last year,
inclusivity or?
so Inclusive School Weeks have been hosted by Stetson or created by Stetson for many years, but we did start our first year last year with this. And so we sent a guidebook out to all the schools. And so it's a different theme every day. And so different, many of our schools participated, and then this year we'll have a proclamation with the board, and then an updated guidebook with resources to help support.
Is there anyone CCAC can help with that?
I mean, the committee's rocking and rolling, but I mean,
Do you need any grant funding for that?
what did you say?
Do you need any of our grant funds to do anything with that?
You guys can spend your $25. Just spend it. Just
Yeah,
make sure
something
you
we
spend
should.
it. Actually.
So is diverse population, is that just for disability
So,
or?
no, actually, we want it to be everyone. So for instance, we actually have our director of equity helping support with that committee so that it started as a disability focus, but now Stetson has expanded it and SCPS has the same image. We want it to be for everybody. Inclusivity for all, not just for individuals with disabilities.
This kind of sounds like goal number 3, 2, whichever. That last, ensure quality education for increasingly diverse population.
Is that everything? Okay. That was everything.
So you can go back and look at their presentations. If you have any questions, you can ask them ahead of time. See what's next year.
Okay, so we have 6 minutes. Do you want to tackle any new business?
All right, 6 minutes left. Were there any specific issues on the new business you want to tackle?
I'd like to finally get something scheduled for these trainings. We've been talking about it for over a year. We thought maybe today would be the day.
The demonstration.
Yes. I'm sorry. Demonstration.
Oh, yeah.
So can I get some clarity on that? What are you, for instance, UCARU is a full day training. So the half day is all about learning trauma approach. And then in the afternoon, our staff, they learn how to use the pads. And math is a full 2-day training. So assuming if you all want a demo, we would just want some components of that. Unless you all want to sit around for 3 days.
I was thinking more of like a 1-hour review of what those things are.
Is there an SME that would feel privileged to come here and show us?
Well, I'm actually trained in both, and Katie's trained in your care, so we can actually do it, or we can ask them if they wanted to come. I don't know if you all want to do it, if you're requesting it be a part of CCAC, regular board meeting, or if you want to do an ad hoc or.
I think an ad hoc would be perfect.
I think it'd be cool to have whoever is appropriate within the special education team, whether it's one of you or bringing in someone from the classrooms to just do like
We're talking about when now.
a bird's eye and an ad hoc, and then a little like, this is how it's implemented in the classroom. These are the fundamentals of the 2 programs. This is how we implement it. And
I think it should be an ad hoc so that it is dedicated to what
The only thing about ad hoc is not everybody can always come to an ad hoc.
my apologies. I didn't think of that.
So our next question is, is the audience CCAC or is the audience anyone who cares? Like, would we want to open it up to the public? I don't know, I forgot who.
Oh, like an event that CCAC could produce with. the
That's
level
bigger
of-
than I wanted to be, but like more of an information session.
Like a learning session for.
So you put the word event on there.
It should be a retreat.
I want 3 days out of.
I think we just keep it to us for right now.
It's always available, right? It's available.
Our-
It would always be available. Streamed.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, is there not already a resource out there that has a video of it that we could just play like a 10-minute clip?
Man actually has a lot of the videos that Ukera does as well. We can bring the pads. I mean, I think between Katie and I, we could present everything in an hour. Because obviously both programs are not about the restraint methods or even use of pads. The bigger piece is understanding trauma in the brain for Ukera, and then for MANT, it's understanding the de-escalation techniques and the crisis cycle.
We would still see the demonstration. That's true. Because
We can show it.
a lot of these situations do.
I'll do that for.
Only if you want to.
I'd rather not.
You could referee.
I think it'd be great to have more information about the training provided to our educators, and so we know when we're talking to someone, we can talk the same language.
Yeah, and there's actually components for MANT that are parent specific, even for Ukera as well. And for those that have students in programs, you likely receive a letter at the beginning of the school year.
Is this training like only for educators in specialized programs, or is it something that anybody that's an educator could sign up for and come to and offered it?
MANT is only for school for everyone, but it is for schools that have selected who is on their crisis team. So you can only be a certified staff member. It means like a teacher or a behavior support specialist. Now all of our CEs learn the de-escalation techniques, and then Ukera is only in our specialized programs. We do not use the pads everywhere.
Or do you want to suggest some dates? Did you want to suggest some dates for an ad hoc?
I was, well, throwing it back at you, I did not consider ad hoc, not everyone could come, but you said it could be done virtually, yeah. Well, golly
Which
gosh.
might have to go into January if I'm gonna.
That's what I was looking at, because our next meeting is the Monday after Thanksgiving weekend. Co-chairs, what do you think?
Troy and Katie were gonna give them a presentation. Is there a window that's good for them? But then we could.
Well, that's why we're, yes. In submission, yes.
And that huge gap for December is always glaring.
Yeah.
Proposal, we're at 7:59 to extend the meeting by 10 minutes.
Second.
In order to, I mean, if you need to leave, please feel free to leave, but in order to figure out a date and
I
to
have to
review
go
the
back.
action items.
If you extend the meeting, can you not do community? We're gonna extend the meeting, because I do have to go. 10 minutes.
All in favor of extending it 10 minutes?
Would you guys be interested in maybe the next two meetings, we, like 5:30 to 6, we do Ukera one day, and then the next one we do MANT, or vice versa? So that way.
That's a fantastic idea, Troy.
Good job.
So November 27th.
So we'll make sure to
It
add.
was Katie's idea.
Thank you,
Katie.
Nance is the more.
We'll do Ukera first.
Okay.
because the lesser entries.
And 5:30, you said?
And then January.
Okay, so on November 22nd, 5:30, we're going to do the demonstration here. Okay, and then for the January meeting, at 5:30, we'll do the one games.
All right. Okay, so just items and everything else will carry over to November. Good, okay.
Kim did want me to share something that since we're skipping, or postponing the FCPS staff members part, I'm just gonna put it on the Google chat for everyone to read. It was something from the teachers that she works with that they wanted to be part of the meeting this evening, so I will just post it. Okay, so action items, we have a few. I'm gonna read over your shoulder, Patty. So schedule an ad hoc committee for cameras in classrooms. We have scheduled the demonstrations. One will be on November 27th at 5:30. The other will be at the January meeting. So those ones are done. Kara and I will be revising the draft on Wednesday. So the stop date time is Wednesday at 8 a.m. for any additional feedback that you may have. Okay. And our next meeting is November 27th. Oh, will this space be available at 5:30, Troy?
It is, I'm gonna make sure that it's.
Okay,
right now,
yeah,
There's
for me.
space right now. but-
Okay. Thank you.
Make a motion to dismiss.
All right, Jake, Kyler,
Second.
All in favor of dismissal?
Jake, and then Kyler.
Thanks, guys.
No, I don't think